Everyone, George here, and today what I am going to bring to you is a video about a question that one of the viewers asked. And basically, the situation is that you're a resident of Quebec, but you work in Ontario. So, as you all might know, um, there are towns and cities that border the Ontario-Quebec border, and for one reason or another, people choose to live in Quebec, but their job takes them across the border, west of the border in Ontario. So in that case, you receive a T4 as opposed to a T4 and a Releve 1. And the question is, I declare that? How do I declare that in UFile? And it's pretty easy. I'll show you how. The other thing I'd like to show you is, again, employment expenses. And I'll briefly talk about that and do a couple of, not a couple, just one easy example. So let's go right ahead and start completing a new file in UFile 2021. Of course, if you have a pre-existing file, you would want to carry that forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and start, and let's identify the taxpayer. In this case, it's Miss Stacy Jones. Let's see if I can increase the font size a little bit so you can see what's going on. I think that's pretty much at 130%. And a fictitious social insurance number. All right, and a date of birth, 15th of August, 1990. Netfile, we're not going to do the electronic stuff. And she is a resident of Quebec. Marital status, well, let's put her single. Did your marital status change? No. Mandatory, we need the gender for Quebec because Quebec asks this question. And it's binary, either female or male. Did your address change? You need to also answer that question. It's for Revenue Quebec purposes, but if you're in the rest of Canada, you don't need to notify anybody whether you changed your address or not, provided you do the change of address on my account. And let's put their fictitious address. Yeah, you can see um, my typing there. However, if you can't, put the video in full screen, okay? That's what I usually do when I watch programming videos. Programming in terms of uh, programming language tutorials. I like those too. And lived in Quebec. I'm not sure why I put Laval instead of Montreal, but anyway. H7M3L3, somewhere in Saint Laurent, actually. All right, and the telephone number. Yep. Okay, next. Let's fill out the CRA and Revenue Quebec questions, language of correspondence. We can either put English or French. Uh, are you feeling not filing for the first time? I don't have any foreign assets, foreign property with a cost over 100,000. Kind of wish I did. I'm not a diplomat. And I am a Canadian citizen, and darn right I'm going to register to vote for the elections. Okay, and like I said before, I'm not going to cover um, the electronic stuff, except that there is one nuance here for 2022. Planned for 2023, the Canada Revenue Agency will start the process of switching to electronically filing a notice of assessment or reassessment. You will receive your notice of assessment or reassessment electronically through your Netfile software or through My Account by providing your email address. In either case, you will need to be registered for My Account for individuals. You can find more information. So in this case, folks, I would say you should answer yes and start a My Account with the CRA because they're planning to eliminate paper notices of assessment, and they will be delivering them somehow through My Account, either back to the software that you use to file your return or directly to My Account. So uh, for simplicity's sakes, I put no to that question, but you should answer yes and start My Account. Um, We have been warned by the CRA. Next, Revenue Quebec questions, because this person, although they work in Ontario, they reside in Quebec, meaning that they have a Quebec driver's license, a Quebec Medicare card, not an OHIP card, and a Quebec address. All right, so it's not the first time that we're filing. Do I live alone? Yes, we do. Accelerated refund? Yes, if eligible. I don't have any virtual currency. We're going to make it a simple T4 return. You may apply for the Solidarity Tax Credit, and all you need is your property tax bill or your Releve 31. In this case, I won't because I want to make a nice short video. The tax shield, usually say yes and let Revenue Quebec calculate it, because at the end of the day, they have all the information and are probably the only ones that know how to do it perfectly. All right, and again, no to the Netfile questions for now. And one thing that is very common in Quebec is that you have to have either private drug insurance, or you must enroll with the government plan, the RAMQ plan. And let's say this, in this case, they had their own private insurance with their employer, so you would answer your own insurance plan all year. Very important that these questions be answered before you proceed any further, because if they're not, you'll get a warning. And you can see this warning is here now with respect to the drug insurance, and when I press next, it will disappear. You'll get a warning and you won't be able to generate a tax return. So let's go to next. Notice that little warning disappeared? Not a little, it's a big warning. And now, here's the tricky part. When you come to the T4, you will have a T4 income earned outside Quebec. You won't have a T4 income earned in Quebec with QPP, and you won't have a T4 income earned in Quebec with CPP contributions. That's highly unlikely, but not out of the scope of what can occur. Most likely, if you're working in Ontario and you reside in Quebec, you'll get a T4 for income earned outside Quebec. So this is the one you should apply for. Yeah, great. So let's say you work for um, uh, the Museum of Civilization, Ontario. All right, and let's say you earned about $47,800. Province of employment is Ontario. The CPP contributions, I'm just guessing numbers here, but let's say it's 2324 and 723. $3,000 of registered pension plan contributions, a pension adjustment of 6,000. I am making these figures up, but they're in the scope of what should happen. And let's say you had $5,100 deducted at source. Uh, your EI, insurable earnings, were also 47,800, and your CPP was 47,800. Now, the question you might ask here is, where's my Quebec tax deducted at source? Will I have to pay at the end of the year to the Quebec government? Well, when you scroll down, you should see here, amount of federal tax to transfer to Quebec. Leave this blank to transfer the normal amount of 45% of the federal tax to Quebec. Now, one thing you need to realize is that it's not mandatory to transfer 45% to Quebec, but that will imply that you will have a nice refund on the federal return and a balance owing on the Quebec. Let's do it without the transfer for now. So let's put 0 there. Now notice they ask for an amount. They do not ask for the percentage. So you'll have to calculate whatever 45% of 5,100 is with a calculator and copy paste it in there. I'll show you that later, okay? So let's go to next. And now let's say, look, due to COVID, you had to work from home. And so in the interview setup, I should have employment expenses. Correct. Employment income, employment expenses right there, including the T77S. Click on next. And over here, I should notice that I have employment expenses. There you go. And you have a choice. So working at home due to COVID-19 temporary flat rate, which is $500 this year. Working at home due to COVID on employee earning commission, and it's the T77S. There's a distinction between one and the other because the type of expenses you can claim are two different. Uh, there's a larger list of expenses you can claim for an employee earning commission. However, we optimize between the two. There's an optimization to be made as to which is more advantageous, and UFile does that automatically for you. So, working at home due to COVID-19 for an employee earning a salary, the detailed method, we're going to pick eligible employment expenses for an employee earning a salary. So, add that, and ordinarily, you need to identify the employer name. Everything else with respect to the identification, it's a matter of trying to replicate the declaration of conditions of employment. Now, before you claim employment expenses, your employer needs to fill out these forms and certify that you're eligible to claim them. You don't have to send these forms to the government, but you do need to keep them in case they ask for the records. And for Quebec, you need a TP 64.3. Okay, and you don't need to replicate them in UFile. You simply need to enter your expenses. Okay, so the beginning date, end date, they're not mandatory. So here I want to claim, what do I want to claim? Let's see, legal fees, food and beverage, not ordinarily, parking, supplies, yeah, miscellaneous supplies. Let's claim $250 there. Travel expenses, salaries, and wages for an assistant. Again, if you need an assistant, your employer has to certify that you did need an assistant. Okay, type of expenses and percentage deductible. That's if you want to prorate any of these expenses. We don't. All right, no allowances. And I don't want to claim the GST, QST rebate because let's say my employer was not entitled to be was not a GST registrant, and that's the way it is. Motor vehicle expenses. Um, yeah, we can do that. Purchased motor vehicle. Let's say I have a Honda. Make a vehicle a Civic. Registration number. Do I really need that? I'm not too certain that I do. Let's say the purchase date was 01/01/2015. Kilometers traveled was 19,560, and total kilometers was 20,000. And and UFile will do the proration of the business expenses um, according to this ratio, 19,560 over 20,000. Class of vehicle, let's say I have a class 10 vehicle. Okay, and if you're not certain, look at the guide for employment expenses. They have a list of all the classes and description of them. Opening balance of undepreciated capital cost. Um, let's say it was 11,850. Okay, and I found that out by looking at the value of the property in a blue book or whatnot. Um, gas is expensive these days, so let's put 3,450. Maintenance and repairs 1,500. You would have to tally up your receipts for this and actually keep your receipts in a log. Okay, I might do a video later on about how to do a log in Excel with respect to this. Insurance premiums $900. License and registration, let's put that at flat 455. Short-term car rental fees. Short-term car rental fees are not leasing expenses. They're basically if for any reason your car was in the shop and you needed to lease a car uh, from U-Haul or whatnot uh, in order to accommodate your needs and parking expenses. Let's say that is uh, $600. I find people you know, underestimate their parking expenses, but out of $20 per day, if you're working in the city, it adds up. All right. And the other thing I'd like to do is office and the home expenses. So, percentage of home used for personal purposes, I would, have to guesstimate based on square footage. What are you using? Um, and then prorate it even further if you're spending personal time in that space. I would say not me personally, but I would put it at 95% personal. Heat is not cheap these days, so let's do a quick calculation. 360 times 12, $4,320. Yeah, I know it's far more expensive in Ontario. Uh, that's why some people may choose to live on the other side of the border. And electricity is not cheap either. Okay, so I know 1,200 is peanuts, but hey. Internet access fees, let's put that at 625. Insurance premiums, maintenance and repairs. I'm coming up with numbers here. Oh. Property taxes and telephone, office rent, water, and other taxes. So taxes and property taxes, let's say you have some user fees or water tax, you can either add them up here or put them separately. It's up to you. So that's pretty much it with office and the home expenses and the other expenses. Um, this year, if your employer um, has completed the conditions of employment forms, federal and Quebec, um, it may be more beneficial to claim your actual expenses than to claim the $500 amount. If you don't want to be bothered with the pre-assessment review unit and keeping receipts, well, you still have to keep receipts. You can opt for the $500 amount, and all depends on your income. If you're a high income earner, the deduction is in terms of how much it's worth. You would multiply it by your marginal tax rate, and you get the amount of benefit. And I think if you were required to work from home, um, it's worth a time to invest in calculating how much your expenses are and what the outcome would be with one method versus the other. Let's go back to U-File now and check the review page for any messages. Well, let's look at the summary since that pops up first. We have a net refund of $963.25, and the federal summary has a refund of $3,198.64. But on Quebec, right, you owe $2,235.39. That's because I did not opt for the transfer. Now, if you're filing your return on a timely basis, you can opt, and you're net filing, okay? You can opt to file both returns at the same time, and then within a matter of weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, maybe sooner than that, you'll end up getting the refunded to your bank account. Then you go with a remittance slip to your bank to pay your Quebec amount, and you're going to be left with a net $963.25. If that's convenient for you, you can pick that strategy. Alternatively, you can take 45% of the $5,100 up to a maximum of 45%. So what is that? 5100 times 0.45 equals $2,295. So in that case, in that case, um, you'll be you won't have you won't have a huge amount owing to Quebec. Let's take a look and see. All right, let's go back to interview. Go to your T4 slip and scroll down. Scroll down. Here it is. All right. So we determined 45% of 5,100 to be 2295. So I believe here you can click here. Okay, you can click on the calculator, do a Control C, minimize, and do a Control V. There's my 2295. Go to next. Next is actually a recalculation button. It's a hidden gem in UFile or an Easter egg. Review, and here's the new total. It still is net 963.25, but you have a refund on the federal and a refund on the Quebec, and you should file your returns as soon as possible. Let's go to messages. Okay. You must file a TP 64.3 form if you're claiming employment expenses. To enter the required information, well, it's not a warning that will prevent me from filing, I don't think. Okay. And if you do have that form, you need only to keep it on record. Okay. This information is not being transmitted to the government. You need to keep the paper forms in your file or the PDF. Based on your family income, according to the family situation, you are entitled to the solidarity tax credit. That's great, but I don't want to go through the trouble of filling it out for this example. So let's go to next. Now you get a summary. It's good to review everything and make sure that the figures that are on your T4 transposed well to um, to um, to your return. Yeah. All right. Tax return. Accept. You can review your return in UFile just to make sure that all the amounts appear on the right places. The amounts on your T4. Uh, Now you may ask, George, why didn't you do AFR, which is auto-fill your return? Um, Look, I'm a bit old-fashioned. I like the good old-fashioned way of doing it by data entry. I would recommend that people can consult the data from the CRA, but ultimately, it's my personal taste that I like to collect the source documents myself, validate them, put them in the tax return, check my tax return to make sure that the amounts are correct, review the tax return quickly, and then net file my return. I'm just going to show you where you can go to net file the return. I'm not actually going to net file the return because this is a fully functional 2021 version of the software. Now, the other thing, I just went over the federal return and I made sure that everything is fine. The other thing you'd like to check is, uh, see, you have a refundable credit because this, no, you don't. You don't have the Canada training credit because your income is too high. We generate the schedule just the same. So you can consult as to how you got yourself disqualified from this credit. Well, there's nothing bad to it. It means that you've earned enough income to be above the poverty line. So the adjusted net income was too high in order to claim the credit. There it is. So there's quite a big margin there. between the threshold allowed and the threshold that this allows you to credit. Okay. Form RC 381 is to calculate the interprovincial calculation for CPP and QPP contribution overpayments. That's a bit complicated, but I generally trust everything that UFAL does. So there it is. Okay. And for your Quebec, oops, let's look at the employment expenses as well. So I have my allowable motor vehicle expenses, office and the home expenses. There they are. So we were carrying forward an amount to future years because ultimately we did not need them. Here's my CCA, my total cost allowance. Quebec, as you can see here, transferable portion of the income tax withheld for another province. And this is my tax, less my credits transferred from Ontario. Gives me a small refund of 59.61. Uh, LE35 is the reconciliation between contributing to the Canada Pension Plan and the Quebec Pension Plan. TP59 for employment expenses works out pretty similar to the federal, except there's a, a bit of unique rules to how you can claim office and the home expenses for Quebec. There you have it. And you also have the GST calculation estimate. Oh, you even at 40 or so K, you still get a credit. That's great. RSP. Yeah, I skipped through that. Basically, in order to fill out the RSP schedule. Now, if you had an early version of UFile, you could have done some RSP planning, right? And you would put your RSP limit from your notice of assessment there. Let's say it was a whopping $68,700, okay? And you had no RSP, unused contributions from the first 60 days of 2021. March, first 60 days, you did that planning, you got your initial estimate as to how much of a refund you were getting, and you went to TD Bank and made an additional $5,000 of RSP contributions, right? Next. And let's see how things change. Actually, I jumped the gun again. Let's go back to review and see the overall summary. And look how much of a difference the RSP contribution makes now. Now, you might say that this is wonderful. I'm getting back a refund of 2386.46. But what I propose to people is come out to an even balance of zero. Now, that's going to be the topic of another video. Why do I ultimately want to come to a net zero refund balance due? I'll explain that in another short video. So, guys, do not forget to save your return. Actually, file, save your return. Okay, right? Save, PDF, save again. And then once you you're ready to file, you'll click here, net file, uh, figure out the errors here. What are the errors? Okay, so for Quebec, you need to fill in the information, the required information for the TP, uh, for the TP64. That's no big deal. It's just replicating that form and you file. You file, save your return. And you can also consult under tax return. We have a special form called carry forwards to the following year. So you can also consult that page to see what carry forwards you have. CCA carry forwards, for instance. This will be the undepreciated capital cost for your car for the following year. Okay. Summary of carry forward amounts all the way to the bottom. So eligible amount 547, amount room for from previous years. Canada training limit for 2022. It should be if you were doing your tax return and you never claimed this before, at this stage of the game, I think most people will have $500 for respect to with respect to that program. So that's basically it. I hope I answered another tax question. And if you do have any tax questions, don't hesitate to call our support. Ask in the comments below, but do not put in personal information. Ask it in the form of a general question. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Take care.